A new week, another episode. It is the Donny Experience with Chami. Toxic working environment can contribute to an employee's stress and burnout. On today's episode, we will be chatting to Awande, who is a mindfulness coach and also a body positivity and mental health advocate. Do we enjoy our show? Awande, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chami.
We are so excited and so glad to have you. So I would love for you to introduce yourself even better because I gave just a snippet of it.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm a mindset and mindfulness coach. My name is Awande Mabaso. I actually used to be a pastry chef and chocolatier, and it was through those toxic working environments that I found myself where I am today, actually. Yes.
You know, Awande, as we're talking about toxic working environments, how draining they could be to us. Yes. We know that, as I was researching, it's 30% of people who choose to go and report it, whereas the others say, let me just keep quiet.
Yeah, it's a staggeringly low amount of people who report these incidences. And a lot of it is based on the fact that people are afraid of losing their jobs.
Yes.
Job insecurity is a huge issue in South Africa, especially now that we're looking at 60% youth unemployment.
Of course.
Right? And then also people are afraid of retaliation. They're afraid of things getting worse for them. They're hoping that somehow magically things can get better. And we all know that doesn't ever happen. It either gets worse or you leave. So it is low.
It is. You know, the thing with us, we always forget our rights as employees. And we know that it's something that's it's quite crucial to know your rights. So do you think we as employees, we do take our rights, we just say, I know my rights as an employee?
No, people don't know their rights. That's something that I've come to discover with this toxic workplace journey, is that people don't know their rights, they don't know their laws as well. I mean, you've got the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, which is in every single workplace by law, has to be put up. No one's reading it.
Yeah.
We don't know the labor relations laws or labor relations act even. We never know the code of good practice. That's what it's called. We've got different codes of good practice. We have all of these things that are backing us up. No one reads them. No one knows them. And so we take our employees' word for it that if you do something wrong, I will fire you.
Yeah.
The process to get fired is incredibly long. It's not that simple.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we don't know our laws, and that's what people need to start doing. Just it's PDF. Google is free.
Exactly. You know, I wanted to ask, where does HR come in when it comes to that?
Oh, okay. So HR, they need to be there, in my opinion. I feel like when there is a problem, HR needs to be there from the very beginning. But it doesn't have to be anything that's formal. It can be incredibly informal, reminding people how conduct should be in the workplace, right? Conduct, policies, making sure that there is, if everyone is online, for instance, or they work from a laptop or a computer, they're able to have access to policies and procedures in a company, in a server, or letting everyone know that there's an open door policy to HR if there's a problem. Hey, come on through, let's chat about it. Maybe you just want to troubleshoot something. It doesn't have to be formal. Just making sure that HR is accessible from the very beginning.
From the very beginning. That's so true. You know, Awande, as I was prepping up for this, there's someone who spoke to me and said, this is what she went through. Because I always see that you always bring out stories of people. She said to me, she was in a company and the boss would just call her into the office, just randomly. He said, talking about, okay, they're from vendor and all that, but she was not comfortable because it kept on happening continuously. And she would say, I want to marry someone like you and all that. She didn't like it. Then she went home and decided that I can't do this. And she decided to just quit. Now here's the problem. Her family saying that, why did you leave? You need the money.
You have those families, the ones that don't understand. And unfortunately, they won't understand. And it comes to a point like that where if you're dealing with family members like that, or you have that support structure that's not quite as supportive, then you're going to have to build up the strength to become the support that you need for yourself. They won't understand. They'll just think, it's just a couple of comments. I don't know if I've had the exact same thing happen to me where I've spoken to my mother and said, this person said something that made me uncomfortable, and she giggled. But I think it's because she just didn't understand those things that she's been through and she just ignored them. But the working landscape is so different today because it only ever escalates and it gets worse.
That's
so
true.
you just have to be your own support structure, either leaving or complaining about it.
Because to me, she said they don't understand, her mental state at that moment.
You know what? Mental health is still such a stigma. No one understands that, oh, you're anxious. You're just anxious because of work. You're depressed because of work. You're feeling anxious because this person is speaking to you this way. Ignore it. We just have to know that as the younger generations, that this is what we need to do that feels right for us. They won't understand. Some people. We're getting there, though, with some boomers.
But
some boomers,
slowly.
but very slowly.
Yeah.
But if they don't get it, you just have to take it on yourself to make sure that you take care of yourself.
Wow. So I wonder, let's talk about the effects this toxic working environment does on your work, your work performance.
Yes. Okay, so toxic work environment. And this depends. Is it the entire culture or is it just one person? Okay, because then it happens a lot quicker, or it's just very steady decline in your productivity.
Yeah.
So it usually starts coming to your productivity and also your mood. You either start performing less, or you don't perform as well as you used to. You're making a lot more careless mistakes, which only then serves to, It only serves to amplify that you are incompetent, even though you're not.
That's true.
Right? It's just you're so scared, you're making mistakes, you're anxious, and then it's your mood. You're no longer as bubbly as you used to be. If you are, you're not as talkative as you used to be. You're less receptive to being in communicative spaces with other people. So it just affects everything overall within the workplace, and it looks like you're not performing or you're not able to, but you've just lost so much motivation. It's that lack of motivation. It's that having to actually talk yourself into doing the work instead of just doing it because you could. So those are just surface level what happens to you.
Goodness, working environments which are so unbearable.
Horrible.
Yeah, it's very horrible because each and everyone has a story. I've got my stories. You've got your stories.
Oh, many.
For me, I want to know what's that horrific one that you've known of.
Ooh. Personal or someone else?
I think let's go for you because you've been through it.
I'm just trying to go through now the Rolodex.
Sure, it's a lot.
Stories that have happened. When I think about it, okay. I had a colleague at a place where I worked at. He was, let me be honest, very typical sort of white man audacity kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was at a stage where this is when I'd also just finished with my mindfulness and mindset qualification. So I was also starting to coach on the side. And I remember sitting there and just saying, we were having a conversation and just saying to him, what you said seems quite hypocritical. Right? Same tone.
Yeah.
Sitting at my office table while he was sitting at his office table, he immediately got up, walked all the way over. A man that's double my size, not a small girl. Double my size, walked all the way over and screamed, but going everywhere, screamed in my face, swearing. I won't swear on your show, but swearing at me to take it back. How dare you? How dare you? Our boss's office was next door. And our boss I remember saying to myself, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to take a breather. And one of my colleagues was sitting there and telling him, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Just calm down. And I remember going outside and having a breather. A few hours went by. I went to my boss and she said, well, you didn't complain when it happened. So I don't see how this is relevant that you need to complain now.
Goodness.
And I said to her, I don't think that there's a statute of limitations on complaining about terrible behavior from a colleague. And she said, well, it's not my priority. And that was something that happened often, all the time, until I actually got to a point where I didn't address this colleague at all, unless I needed to for work.
Yes.
But I didn't talk to him, and he felt it. He felt it because then he would try to talk to me, and I said, is this work related?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Please, can you carry on only speaking about work things?
That's it.
That's all it is. And he threatened to take me to HR. I said, please go ahead.
Ooh.
Please, I dare you. Let's do
Yeah.
this. I'm actually pumped.
I'm ready.
I've never been so ready for HR.
Yeah.
They like me. Please go ahead. But yeah, that was just one instance of toxicity in the workplace from a colleague that I had to share space with often.
Yeah, every day you have to see this person and
Every day.
oh,
But
goodness.
I mean, he didn't limit it to me, so he
You know.
was just toxic with everyone, and so
You-
was the boss.
You know, as you're talking about that, there comes a baiting one.
Yes.
Now you are provoked because you want to say something, but you just have to compose yourself because you're like, what if I get fired? What if he does this? How do you handle that?
You know, it's and it comes to the 3 C's that I saw. I remember seeing this on
Was
somebody's
it character, composure? I forgot
and
the
control.
other.
Character, composure, and
Yes.
control.
Yeah.
Yes. But it is also what I teach with mindfulness is dialectical behavioral therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got an event
Yes.
that happens, and then you've got your emotions, thoughts, feelings, and then comes the reaction or response,
Mm-hmm.
and then comes the consequences from that. And believe it or not, I'm one of those. I used to be incredibly temperamental.
Yeah.
Like I meet fire with fire.
Yeah.
But then I learned to pause.
Mm-hmm.
When you're going through the emotions and the thoughts, what's going through your mind is valid. Okay,
Yeah.
you want to have an appropriate emotional response though. So we need to pause.
Mm-hmm.
And especially within the workplace, if somebody is coming up to you and screaming at you,
Mm-hmm.
the last thing you want to do is scream at them. What you want in your head is to say, do I want to look as foolish as them?
Yeah.
Look at how they look. It might be acceptable to other people. Maybe they're used to this person screaming like this. But the moment that you retaliate,
Mm-hmm.
the intention is completely gone. All they see is the impact of you screaming, the impact of your arms going all over the place, the impact of your face looking angry, and also doesn't help if you're black.
Oh, goodness.
If you're a person of color
Yeah.
and you're screaming like that, they go, well, typical.
Of course.
So we're having to remember that for ourselves to actually just have a proper and productive workplace is to just remain completely composed. Pause. It's hard at first,
It
but
is.
once you start seeing it from that perspective and going, they look so foolish.
Mm.
Is that what I look like when I scream and shout back?
Exactly.
Not doing it. And then just keeping composed. They want to make you angry.
That's the aim.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Make you look bad.
You know, as we're talking about this baiting one, it happened to me. I applied for leave, prior because I know I was going to a church conference. So they didn't find someone who's going to say, just, take over for me. Guess what? I had to sacrifice my day and go back and check if they found someone who's going to be a stand-in. They didn't. One of the managers said, Chami, because I was using the name Tebogo, by the way. So you're like, Tebogo. Does your God pay your bills? I had to compose myself and think about it. I wanted to vent and say whatever that I wanted to say. But then I was like, did you find the PA who's going to stand in for me?
Brilliant.
And he was like, oh, I see. Okay, we can just move. So from there on, I learned I don't just have to, just retaliate or just because he's provoking me. I just have to compose myself and just let's move on.
And when they also find those weak points,
Mm-hmm.
then they keep going for them. They keep poking. So had you said, how dare you say something like that?
And
it would have carried on. It would have just carried on. The next time they would have said, well, does your God do this for you? Does this happen? They know it is a touchy point for you. And if you are able to not let them see that, then they know they can't get you.
Exactly. So I wonder, what are the coping mechanisms, of to a toxic environment?
Okay, so we've got to look at it from more than one perspective, right? So for you personally, and then when you are within that working environment. So if you're finding that if we're in the working environment, you find people are trying to bait you or are bullying you, we're going with grey rocking. Grey rocking, that is answering in a short business-like response, no emotion in it, because that's what they're looking for, right? The reaction, the emotion, like we just said. So grey rocking and allowing yourself to just say what it is that needs to be said, okay? And I wouldn't necessarily say it's coping mechanisms, but it is definitely strategies to protect yourself, having everything in written communication in the workplace, having all of those receipts, making sure that even if you have just had a verbal discussion, we're on email, okay? And then staying away from toxic people. It is so easy to fall into that negative mindset that mindset of that the group of people who start complaining, and they keep complaining every single time about the workplace, and then you get involved and now you're complaining, and you're just, the negativity breeds, it spreads. So staying away from those kinds of people, or just being incredibly polite as well, and then keeping your personal life to yourself. I cannot stress this one enough. Please, keeping your personal life to yourself. Not everyone needs to know everything about you, because this is where they also start to create problems and toxicity happens. And then it's going home. When you're going home, please taking care of yourself. Your home is not just where you go to eat and sleep. Right? It's your sanctuary. It's your safe space. So what are we doing there? We're journaling. We are meditating, or we are dancing if we feel like we want to dance and you can't meditate. We are cooking good food for ourselves and actually remaining present in that moment. And then there are other coping mechanisms with regards to panic as well. So making sure that you're breathing. Again, coming back to the present, I like to use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. 5 things that you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can smell. No, you can hear. 2 things you can smell, 1 thing that you can taste. Getting into the present. How do we make sure that we can focus on what's happening right now, and we are our own safe space when we are panicking?
You know, I wonder, as you're talking like this, I'm thinking, what happened to those team buildings that you used to have in you know, where we just have an icebreaker, you know, we just get to know each other, you know, our strong and weak points. What happened to that?
You know, it sounds awful. I'm of the opinion that team building is useless. But it depends. Hear me out. It really depends on the team building, because yes, we can have icebreakers, but then we've also got our very introverted people who just kind of, you know, they say hi and they want the word to speak for themselves, and that's it. And then again, it depends on the team building. If they say team building is going out to the bar, not everyone drinks. Or we're going to go for this obstacle course. Look, I'm not an active person like that. I'm not about to now balance on a balance beam, meters up in the air. It's not my thing. And I'm one of those people, if it's that active, I complain the whole time. I complain the whole time and say, I don't know how this brings us together. I can't do that. So I think it just depends on the team building, what you're doing, and making sure it really is intentional and is focused on people getting to know each other and people learning what their strengths and weaknesses are. Yes. We can't learn strengths and weaknesses by going to the bar.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. But we can learn it by maybe having some kind of interesting workshop with one another. So I think because companies don't know how to do these team buildings, I always reckon that half the time, 80% of the time, in fact, they're quite useless.
Indeed.
It's just really for the fun of it. Like the pizza party, it's not team building either.
And I remember with me, the companies that I've worked for, there would be a social worker or a counselor, because when you are so overwhelmed, you just go to that person. But now it's like, nah.
No, we don't have that. In the companies that do have that, the wellness programs, and they have someone to talk to, there's been an issue with betrayal in terms of that, where the person you speak to, you're thinking you're speaking to them in confidence, but your manager gets all this information. So even though the wellness programs, and it's a lot of the times it's very much a front. So they say, here's a wellness program, and I've spoken to a friend of mine who is a corporate attorney. She's amazing at her job, but they have wellness programs. She says, well, where do I find the time to go to the wellness program? If I go there, they'll say, so you spent an hour with them instead of work. Or you spoke to this person and we heard that you're not happy with XYZ. And she said, it's not safe. It's just not safe. If they provided a safer space, if they made sure that the services were available to those who are also busy but can take that time, then it could work.
You know, Awande, we go through a lot. There's bullying in the workspace. Yes. Can we tackle on that?
Well, what aspect of bullying do you want to look at? It depends on what we're looking at. Why are they bullying you?
Exactly.
The reasons, there's so many, right? It could be your appearance, which is quite sad that somebody's bullying you on your appearance, but it could be that they're insecure about their own appearance, and so they want to bully you.
I've been bullied by that actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
or they think, or you might dress up really eccentrically,
Yeah.
and you still look fun, but
Yeah.
they don't seem to think so. Or they bully you just because you're very well skilled. You're well skilled. They are intimidated by the fact that you are skilled and you know what you're talking about. Or you happen to be the friendly person.
Goodness.
You get along with everyone. It gets in the way of it's like now no one's noticing me.
Yeah.
Or this person is getting along with everyone and I can't do it, so I'm going to bring them down. But at the end of the day, with the bullying, it's somebody who can't elevate themselves and make themselves feel better. So in order to do that, they will push you down to look like they are better. They will break you down.
Guys, we go through a lot, eh?
You really do. It's a lot to navigate.
But now, I want to incorporate bullying and also mental health.
Mm-hmm.
How does it?
Okay, so obviously with the bullying, the idea is to, like I said, break you down.
Yeah.
But the issue is that after a while of it happening, and it happens every day, right? Imagine you're chipping away at stone.
Yeah.
And you think that nothing's happening, but after a while you see that it's degrading is the right word? I don't know, but like it's getting smaller, right? Now they're chipping away at your spirit. They're chipping away at who you are. And like I said, you start to see yourself change over time. You're becoming moodier, becoming anxious. And that does affect the mental health because now, and I can remember this clear as day when I was still studying my hospitality qualification.
Yeah.
And where I was studying was in a office building. We actually just had one floor. It was when the campus was much smaller. And I would pull up in my car and I saw this guy sitting in his car next to me and he was bent over on the steering wheel crying every morning.
Oh.
Every single morning, and we got there at the same time. And it looked like he was trying to talk himself into getting into work, right? And it starts to affect you in such a way that you start believing what these people are saying, or you start second guessing yourself, right? Because with this bullying, it's also a form of gaslighting over time. You start to go, maybe I'm not as good as I thought that I was. Maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. And I'm making so many mistakes now because I'm anxious. Maybe I am incompetent. It gets to you so much, not to your self-esteem, that eventually you do start developing anxiety. People start developing acute generalized anxiety. People start developing depression. It's not in the DSM-5 with the diagnostic criteria, but people are getting workplace-related PTSD.
Wow.
I mean, before we used to look at PTSD in relation to soldiers in war.
Of course.
Now you feel like you're in war every day.
Every single day.
Working with a bunch of people. We're getting PTSD.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And there's this thing that I've also noticed in the workspace.
Yes.
Now here's this person wanting to show you that authority. I'm your boss. So you listen to this.
Yes.
That time you're doing your job. And everything is that, but because I'm your boss, you have to listen to me. How do we deal with that too?
Okay, so you can go about it a few different ways. One is actually sitting down with them and having a realistic talk about expectations and saying, are you happy with my work? I've got all my work done. Okay. And making sure you're saying a lot of I statements. Don't say you statements because people get defensive.
Yes.
So we're saying a lot of I statements. I just feel XYZ when you're doing XYZ. I'm wondering if we can come to a compromise with how we can interact with each other so that I can still produce great work for you and I can still come to you as and when needed. Okay? Or if they're not up to that and they still some people just want to throw their weight around. Some people are also drunk with power. It is what it is, right? And it's just learning to navigate with this person. Giving them what it is that they need in terms of your work and your work duties.
Yes.
And again, this is also where it comes to CYA, cover your ass, right? We're doing emails. We are making sure that's how we are corresponding. We're also grey rocking with this person because if we give them any kind of reaction, then they go, well, look at me. Look at what I can do. Look how I can make them feel, right?
Yeah.
So grey rocking with this person. And then just also being polite and civil and leaving it that way. Like sometimes there's no way around it. If they can't be flexible with you, then you're the one that just has to put the boundaries up for yourself in order to survive.
There's this other thing. I remember we were in a meeting and this chairperson was reprimanding another colleague in front of us. What came to mind? Someone said to me, imagine abazali bethu, imagine umzali wakho achikwa kanjalo. How it does to you as an individual. So I said to that person, if you've got a problem with so-and-so, can't you just call the person and speak to him or her privately? So how do we address that? Because you cannot just reprimand me in front of everyone.
You can't. And it's a form of humiliation, and it is a form of harassment, technically, right? And it just shows that person wants to let everyone know, look at what I can do.
Yes.
The way I'm shouting at them, look at what I can do. So that person themselves has to go up to them. Unfortunately, we can't necessarily get involved in somebody else's workplace problems, right? It can bring a lot of problems onto us as well, but also especially that person needs to become courageous. They need to become brave. They need to then go up to that boss and say, hi, I really did not appreciate when you spoke to me this way in front of my colleagues. I feel incredibly humiliated. Can we in future make sure that you can put me aside, talk to me on the side in your office, and we can just come to a resolution, right? Indeed. But again, we can't always change other people. They might continue doing this, and this is where we start recording incidences. We start writing it down.
Thank you for that.
And we also happen to be in a country where recordings without somebody else's consent is allowed.
Yeah.
So you could have your phone there and actually record, and they don't know that, as long as you're not manipulating the situation at all. But in order to help you out, should it get to an event where you need to complain to the CCMA or Labor Dispute Center, whatever it is, but you can do all of that.
Oh, wow. Because that recording one, I was like, no, we need to speak about it.
Yes, recording.
Yes, it's crucial. And since we need to wrap up, I want us to tackle the steps we need to take, for when you want to, where do we go when you want to complain?
Okay, so, before you go anywhere at all to complain, make sure that you have all the evidence. This is where people go wrong, and they don't gather these things. And I know that everyone says, how am I supposed to work and then also have the mental capacity to remember to gather these things, right? But we just need to do it. It needs to be a habit. And I learned this from a former colleague who's actually still a friend of mine. He had a file, a physical file and a digital file. He made it a mission to do that. And he said, I have all of the good remarks in there. I've printed them out. I've saved them. Everything good that's ever been said, because that comes in handy.
True.
All of the complaints, everything you've typed out, you've got to make sure everything is in written communication. So you're typing that out. You are then sending it to your personal email.
Okay.
The reason why I say that is because if they happen to dismiss you all of a sudden and you don't have access to your work emails, that's a problem. Also, even if you are, let's say, on leave or whatever the case may be, I've worked in places where IT can actually get into your emails and change everything.
Yes.
So by sending it to your personal email, now you have proof that this is actually what had happened. It's been changed. I don't know how, but according to the date and time of this thing, this is what's happened on my side. So you make sure you have all of that going for you. And then speaking to anyone who's willing to be a witness. Not everyone will, but those who are, please speak to them and make sure that they have your back. And then you're going to then reach out to the CCMA. It needs to be within 30 days.
Oh, okay.
30. If you're leaving a place, if you've resigned, it needs to be within 30 days. I think it can be 60 to 90 days in cases of discrimination, but it needs to be within 30 days. And you can also still speak to the CCMA while working at that company. So make sure you are speaking to them within 30 days if you've left the place or you've been fired. And you are then going to go, I think you can actually email them. I would suggest going to the offices. So
it's better.
Sometimes emails don't read them, or it doesn't get back to you, or it gets into the spam. We all know how that's like. So please get to your nearest labor center. So where you're getting your UIF and everything, get to your nearest labor center. And I say nearest one because they will turn you away to go to your closest one. So you're thinking, I need to go to town. You might need to go to Ferndale, or you might need to go to Bloemfontein. please make sure it is your closest one.
Closest.
That's how they deal with everything. And then you are going in there with your evidence and you're saying, this is what's happened to me. What can I start doing? And that's what you just need to do.
Goodness. You were talking about witnesses. In my head, I'm like, what if they're like, no, we won't do that? Because you know how witnesses can be.
That does happen.
Yeah.
And, we can't, as much as we hope that they would be a witness for us, the sad thing is that a lot of people, again, are scared of losing their jobs. They might be looking at you and going, this is what happened to you.
Yes.
I don't want that happening to me. And so then they might say to you, look, I applaud you for going through with this. I cannot be a witness. And we just need to understand. That's all it is. We just need to understand. And this is why we need the rest of the evidence. If that person cannot be a witness, then it's fine. We've got the rest of our evidence.
Yes. I wonder, we live in a world where like jobs are so scarce,
Yes.
and you have to think thoroughly, actually think twice before you just make that decision.
You do. You really, really do. And I think it's not right now with jobs being so just feeling like they're few and far in between, right? It's so imperative that if you are working in a toxic work environment and you are not able to leave and you don't have the means to leave, that you are prioritizing your mental and emotional well-being. Because you can't change a toxic work environment, but a toxic work environment can change you.
I'm thinking of something, prioritizing. A lot of people are not doing that.
No. We think of it way too late.
Yeah.
By the time that we're already having our fifth mental breakdown, we're going, well, I think I need to do something. And it needs to be happening right from the start. We haven't been given the tools ever in our lives. It needs to happen right from the start.
Yeah.
Everybody who even goes to groove, to party.
Yeah.
That's their way of trying to get over things.
Exactly.
But the problem is you're spending money on alcohol, you're spending money on going out, all of these things. And the next day you're still feeling terrible.
Same. Yeah.
So we've got a lot of bad coping mechanisms. We just really need to come back to ourselves and find out, what is it that I need to feel better that is good for me? And sometimes it's difficult at first.
It is.
But what is good for you?
But we need to start working on our mental health now, because it's crucial.
We really, really do.
All right, Awande, thank you so much for joining us on the Dawning Experience. We really, really appreciate you.
I'm so happy to be here.
Girl power, we really thank you,
Yes.
for taking time to join us on the Dawning Experience. On today's episode, we were talking about toxic working environments, on how you should also take care of your mental health. You have rights as an employee. So please do me a favor, comment and tell us of your experiences. We would love to know about that. This is the Dawning Experience.